The rope burned against Sarah's wrists as she struggled against the ancient oak tree, her heart hammering so hard she could hear it echo in her ears. The three figures circling her like vultures wore cruel smiles that made her stomach churn with fear and humiliation. She'd walked this same dirt road home from the farmer's market every Saturday for the past 2 years since moving to Millbrook, never imagining that her quiet life could be shattered in a single afternoon. "Look at the little farm mouse," sneered Jessica, the ringleader whose perfectly manicured nails looked absurdly out of place in the rural setting. "Still think you're better than us with your organic vegetables and your holier-than-thou attitude?" Sarah's voice came out as barely a whisper. "Please, just let me go. I never did anything to you." "Never did anything?" Jessica's laugh was sharp as broken glass. "You moved into our town, took over the best spot at the market, and now everyone talks about your precious little farm like you're some kind of saint. You think we don't know you're looking down on us?" The accusation hit Sarah like a physical blow. She'd moved to Millbrook after her divorce, seeking peace and simplicity. The small farm she'd inherited from her late grandmother had seemed like a sanctuary, a place where she could heal and start over. She'd thrown herself into growing vegetables, tending chickens, and slowly, carefully, building a life that felt authentic and meaningful. The last thing she'd wanted was to make enemies. "I've never looked down on anyone," Sarah said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I just wanted to fit in here, to be part of the community." "By showing us all up?" This came from Marcus, Jessica's boyfriend, whose bulky frame cast a shadow over Sarah's trembling form. "Making us look like idiots with your fancy farming techniques and your perfect little setup?" The third member of their cruel trio, a woman named Brenda whose resentment seemed to radiate from every pore, stepped closer. "Maybe we should call that husband of yours. What was his name again?" "Oh, that's right, you don't have one anymore. Just a sad little divorcee playing farmer." "Actually," Sarah said quietly, surprising herself with the steadiness in her voice, "I do have a husband now." The three exchanged glances, clearly thrown off by this revelation. Sarah had been so private about her personal life that most of the town knew very little about her beyond her farming activities. "Prove it," Jessica demanded. "Call him. Let's see if your imaginary husband comes to save you." With shaking fingers, Sarah reached for her phone, grateful they hadn't thought to take it away from her. She scrolled to a contact simply labeled Jake and pressed call. The phone rang once, twice, and she began to panic that he wouldn't answer. They'd only been married 6 months, a quiet ceremony at the courthouse that few people knew about. Jake was away on one of his mysterious work trips, the kind he couldn't talk about, the kind that sometimes lasted weeks. "Sarah?" His voice was warm and immediately alert. "Everything okay, sweetheart?" The endearment nearly broke her composure. "Jake," she whispered, tears finally spilling over. I'm in trouble." The change in his tone was instantaneous, shifting from gentle husband to something harder, more dangerous. "Where are you? What's happening?" "I'm tied to the old oak tree on Miller Road. There are 3 people here, and they..." Her voice cracked. "They won't let me go." "Are you hurt?" The question came sharp and fast. "Not yet, but..." "Stay on the line. I'm coming. Do not hang up this phone." She could hear movement in the background, urgent and purposeful. Jessica snatched the phone away, putting it on speaker with a cruel grin. "Hello, husband," she said mockingly. "Your little wife here has been causing some problems in our town. Maybe you should come collect her before things get ugly." The silence on the other end of the line stretched just long enough to make everyone uncomfortable. When Jake's voice came back, it was completely different, cold, controlled, and absolutely terrifying in its calm precision. "I need you to listen very carefully," he said, each word deliberate. "You have exactly 15 minutes to untie my wife and disappear. If you're still there when I arrive, if she has so much as a scratch on her, you will discover that there are consequences in this world far worse than anything your small minds can imagine. Marcus laughed, but it sounded forced. Tough guy, huh? What are you gonna do, call the cops? We know the sheriff around here. Our families have been in Millbrook for generations. I'm not going to call anyone, Jake replied, and something in his tone made Sarah's blood run cold despite the fact that he was coming to help her. 14 minutes now. The line went dead. What a joke, Jessica scoffed, but Sarah noticed her hands were shaking slightly as she tossed the phone back. Some tough guy husband who's probably hours away. Maybe we should teach you a lesson about respect while we wait. But something had shifted in the dynamic. The absolute certainty in Jake's voice, the specific way he'd counted down the time, had planted a seed of doubt in their minds. Sarah found herself studying her husband's tone in her memory. In all their months together, she'd never heard him sound like that. Jake was gentle, patient, kind, the sort of man who fixed her fence without being asked and brought her coffee in bed on Sunday mornings. He worked in private security, he'd told her vaguely, and traveled frequently for consulting jobs. She'd never pressed for details, respecting his privacy just as he respected hers. Now, tied to this tree with her heart racing and her wrists raw from the rope, she began to wonder what she didn't know about the man she'd married. He's probably calling the police right now, Brenda said, but her voice lacked conviction. We should just go. This is getting out of hand. We're not going anywhere, Jessica snapped. This little princess needs to learn her place. 12 minutes passed in tense silence. Then 11. Sarah found herself straining her ears for any sound of an approaching vehicle, while her three captors shifted nervously, their earlier bravado evaporating with each passing moment. At the 10-minute mark, they heard it, the distant rumble of a motorcycle engine, growing louder, approaching fast. Too fast. Sarah felt her heart leap with hope and terror in equal measure. The motorcycle appeared around the bend in the road like something out of a dream, or perhaps a nightmare. It was matte black, military-looking, and moving with the kind of speed that suggested its rider had no concern whatsoever for traffic laws or personal safety. The bike skidded to a halt in a spray of gravel and dust, and the rider dismounted in one fluid motion. Sarah's husband stood before them, and she realized with a shock that she was seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time. Gone was the gentle, slightly rumpled man who helped her with morning chores and made her laugh over dinner. This version of Jake moved with predatory grace, his eyes scanning the scene with professional assessment. He was wearing black tactical gear that looked both expensive and well-used, and there was something about his posture, his bearing, that screamed military training. You have 4 minutes left, he said conversationally, as if he were commenting on the weather. I suggest you use them wisely. Marcus, perhaps attempting to salvage some shred of masculine pride, stepped forward. Look, man, we were just having a little fun. No harm done. Maybe we can work something out here. Jake's gaze shifted to him, and Marcus actually took a step back. The only thing you can work out is how far you can get in the next 4 minutes. You can't threaten us, Jessica said, but her voice was high and strained. There are 3 of us and 1 of you. We know people in this town. You're nobody. 3 minutes 30 seconds, Jake said, checking his watch. He began walking toward Sarah, his movements economical and purposeful. And you're right, I am nobody. That's exactly the point. As he approached, Sarah saw something she'd never noticed before, or perhaps something that had never been visible in their quiet domestic life together. There were scars on his hands, small and precise. His eyes held a depth of knowledge about violence that made her stomach tighten. When he reached her, his touch was infinitely gentle as he began working at the knots binding her to the tree, but his attention never wavered from the 3 people who had tormented her. Jake, she whispered, what do you do? Really? Later, sweetheart, he murmured, his fingers working quickly at the rope. Right now I need you to walk to the motorcycle and wait for me there. The rope fell away, and Sarah rubbed her raw wrists, looking uncertainly between her husband and her tormentors. "Jessica,